Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Elliot Towsley, and I am a co-founder of a music marketing agency called DeNovo Agency. And since we were founded in 2017, we've worked with something like 3,000 different music artists from across the world, all in many different stages of their music businesses, and almost all of them have questions about how the big streaming platforms, and the biggest one, Spotify, all of the musicians that we work with have questions about how this platform works. So I decided today I'm going to dive into how Spotify actually works. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about Spotify is they are not a music company in tech. They are a tech company like Facebook in music. They collect data and use data similarly to how Google or YouTube or Instagram are all collecting data and trying to figure out what people like to engage with the most so that they keep people on their platform. So Spotify's recently came out and said that there are 100,000 uploads per day on Spotify. Because keep in mind, Spotify has things other than music. They have audiobooks now. They have podcasts. They have stand-up comedy. They have like mental help things. They have a lot other than just music. So 100,000 tracks are being uploaded each and every day onto Spotify. And they don't have the manpower required to actually listen to all of these things and accurately sort them into where they think they should go, into which listeners they think that the tracks should be in front of. So they have to rely on algorithms to determine patterns and sort pieces of content for them. That brings us to where a lot of the questions that musicians have is around how the Spotify algorithm works. So let's dive right into, first, what is an algorithm? And an algorithm is essentially a formula that is created to do something in particular. And the algorithm that is working for Spotify is one. There are many, many, many different algorithms all working together, but we can just say the algorithm. It's looking to collect, and organize, and interpret all of the data possible that Spotify has open to them. Not only like, okay, well, how old are you? What are you listening to? Who else? What are the similarities between the things you're listening to? They have things like, what do listeners listen to when it's raining in their area? What do they listen to at nighttime? What do they listen to after they were just on YouTube? What do they listen to when they're coming from Instagram? So many data points. So the algorithms that Spotify is looking at is, one, it's analyzing how the audience engages with content, and it's also analyzing the content itself. But one of the misconceptions musicians have when it comes to Spotify is they think that the algorithm is essentially scanning their song to see, oh, it's 98 beats per minute. It's in the key of C, and it kind of sounds like this 50 Cent song, so let's put it over here. That is not what the algorithm is looking for. Spotify is indifferent to if they think you are any good at making whatever it is you're making. The only thing that they are interested in is finding what folks are engaging with, finding patterns with who is engaging with it, and finding ways to get that engaging content in front of more people who will find it engaging. And the way that they do that is they have algorithmic playlists. And the algorithmic playlists are the ones like Daily Mix, Discover Weekly, Release Radar, the artist radio station. Those are all examples of algorithmic playlists on Spotify. And there are also editorial playlists on Spotify and user-generated playlists on Spotify. 3 different categories of playlists. Algorithmic ones are ones that every single user on Spotify has. Every user has a Release Radar playlist, or a Discover Weekly playlist, or a Daily Mix playlist. But the difference is my daily mix, Spotify is going to calculate what my daily mix should be. The algorithm is searching, what does this user find engaging? What are the patterns? Okay, this guy likes, where am I? Here we go. We got Jay-Z. Okay, so this guy likes Jay-Z, Biggie, Snoop, and Tupac. And then there's Johnny Cash there too. So essentially, it's going, okay, this guy likes all of these things. What are some patterns in all of this data that we have that guys in their 30s who listen to these artists, what else do they listen to? And they might recommend Eminem or Elvis because he's similar to Johnny Cash, right? So my daily mix is going to be based on what I listen to. Same with Discover Weekly, same with Release Radar. The only difference between Release Radar and Discover Weekly is that Release Radar is only looking for patterns in songs that have been released in the last 30 days. That's the only difference between Release Radar and Discover Weekly. Discover Weekly might show me a song from 1982 that it thinks I would like, but Release Radar is only going to recommend songs for me that have been released in the last 30 days. But it's still operating under the same like parameters of like, okay, if this person likes these artists, what else that is coming out or has come out in the last 30 days do we think that this person would like? Because we have to think about why Spotify dominates the market, at least in North America, so much. It's not that they have more music available than Apple Music or than Tidal. It's that the casual listeners, the people who are kind of going throughout their day, they're not necessarily digging through the B-sides to find what slipped through the cracks. They're casually going throughout their day, playing music that is selected for them. The Spotify algorithm and these algorithmic playlists operate the same as like a radio station in the 90s or early 2000s. The casual music fans going throughout their day tune into the radio station and receive what music has been selected for them. And they might choose their station based on their taste. Well, now the playlist that they're choosing, their taste is, Spotify knows their taste based on their listening habits and can keep recommending music for each listener. And if the casual listener didn't like the recommendations that Spotify gave them, well, right now Spotify has about 3/4 of the total market of streaming subscribers. So if all it was, oh, Spotify has twice as much music as Apple Music for some reason, that's why so many more people are on Spotify. It's not. They have the same exact music available. And the reason that casual listeners prefer Spotify is because the recommendations that they're able to continuously give them, people like. And when they go through their Release Radar, they like 7 of the 10 songs there. Or when they go through Discover Weekly, they go, wow, that was great. And, you know, I really did like it. If the algorithm misfired and people didn't like the recommendations that it gave it, and then it went back to, well, I just got to manually search for the songs I know I want to listen to. That's like going to YouTube. And Spotify wouldn't dominate. Their algorithm is so good because it can predict what you are most likely going to like engaging with. And the casual listeners do like what they get, and they continue coming back for their recommendations. So that's how algorithmic playlists work. They have nothing to do with, well, your song is in the song, you know, in the key of E at this beat per minute. And, you know, he said on his profile that his similar artists were Kid Cudi, so let's put it over here. That's not what's going on. No one on Spotify is listening to your record. Like when you submit it through a distributor, there is absolutely nobody at Spotify that is listening to those 100,000 tracks per day. No chance in hell they are doing that. You could have the greatest song ever recorded and you could release it next week. But if you don't initially get a wave of attention on that song, enough that Spotify can determine a pattern of guys in their 20s who listen to Childish Gambino are really loving this song. We got to spread it to more people that we know like Childish Gambino, and we're going to spread it to them on Release Radar or Discover Weekly. If you can't get that initial wave of data for Spotify to build off of, it doesn't just analyze your song and somehow know it's amazing and start spreading it to people. You as musicians, we need to either have a fan base in place, some sort of fan base. You need to know how to create some sort of attention on social media, or you need to have some sort of advertising plan or promotional plan in place where you can pay to have that work done for you. But even if you had the next Bohemian Rhapsody, if you just release it and nobody listens, Spotify doesn't know that it's an engaging song, because again, Spotify is indifferent to if they think your song is good or not. They're not A&Rs. They're trying to analyze the data to figure out, oh, people seem to be liking this. Great, let's show it to more people. And it's the cream rises to the top, and the algorithm is kind of just searching what can get off of the ground, anything that can reach this level I'm interested in. So your job is to reach this level, and then hopefully the algorithm can spread you around and kind of take that gas that is needed and use it for you, instead of you having to pay all the time or having to make content all the time in order to get anything going. Eventually you obviously will continue making content, and if you're good at advertising, you should keep doing it, but then the algorithm can pour fuel on the fire and really start to grow it faster than your ad ever could. So the difference between an algorithmic playlist and editorial playlist inherently means that some sort of curator or an editor has selected music to be there. But how the algorithm works leads well into this, because let's say, now we all know like the big labels and certain distributors have bought into Spotify. It's a publicly traded company. They have a lot of big relationships where, hey, I'm a label, you're Spotify, we own stock in each other. Hey, our artist has a big release coming out. Maybe you put him in Rap Caviar, and nudge, nudge, we'll like give you a kickback on the royalties we receive, or something like that. There's a lot of that going on. So let's say on Rap Caviar or any huge editorial playlist, there's usually around 30 or 40 spots on them. I think some of them have 50, but it's usually not like an editorial playlist doesn't have 350 songs on it. So let's say Rap Caviar every Friday or whenever it updates, there's 40 songs on it. Typically something like 30 of those are going to be predetermined based on agreements, based on whatever's going on behind the scenes. 30 of those 40 spots are going to be claimed already based on the songs in that playlist for that given week. Spotify or the curators there can essentially say, okay, algorithm, here's the batch of songs that we need to find patterns in. What other songs, based on what we can determine on who's listening to these songs, what can we find that would fill the remaining 10 of the 40 spots in the playlist? And then the algorithm kind of churns some more, a pattern, and it says, okay, here's 40 songs that fit the pool. All right, great. Well, now there's only 10 spots, so now I need to go through and listen to find the 10 that I handpick. So that's the way that like a human being actually gets involved and finds songs that fit the vibe that they're looking for. It has nothing to do with how well you wrote up the paragraph on your pitch on your distributor. Let's be real. It has nothing to do with that. Much of it is going to come down to, say, the algorithm picked 40 songs that could be up for selection for the editorial playlist. A lot of the things they're going to look for are these profiles, do they look super professional? Do they have professional photos? Do they have their merch set up on their Spotify page? Do they have are there tour dates? Do they have their social profiles? Are they pushing a lot of traffic from their own social profiles to Spotify? Because they can track that. They're not just going to necessarily hand out a huge editorial playlist to someone whose profile looks like shit or who isn't helping Spotify promote their brand. So you got to kind of play along. They're the big whale at the moment, and we kind of have to play by their rules or not play. And like, you can certainly choose to not play, but if we're going to play, we got to understand what Spotify is trying to do. And they're trying to keep casual listeners coming back for their recommendations. So they're not going to spread your song around because they want to do you a favor. We've got to generate enough traffic at the beginning to show, hey, people over here who look like this and are listening to this person are really liking this song. So now you have incentive to spread it around and benefit your listeners, because they're not doing this to help you out. And okay, that brings us to the last kind of playlists, which are user-generated playlists. And playlists are tricky, man, because in a perfect world, they're a great tool where a curator has built up an audience for some reason, whether it's organic or they run really good ads. Whatever it is, these playlists have an audience, and it would be great for you to pay to have a spot in those playlists so that their audience can hear your music. On a macro level, it's really no different. There's always been gatekeepers in the music industry. This is just a different modern type. So yeah, I wish it weren't the go-to way to like promote as an independent artist, but in many ways it is. It doesn't, eventually, if you get your music business off of the ground, you can kind of rely less and less on user-generated playlists. But at the beginning, if you can find legitimate ones, they are a great tool. So user-generated playlists, anybody on Spotify can make any sort of playlist. I could make Elliot's Funky Jams right now, and if I really wanted to make an ad on YouTube and promote it and be like, this, if you like funky music, come check out this playlist, like maybe I could grow an audience and put my own music in there every once in a while to kind of just promote my own music through the back door. But when it comes to user-generated playlists, finding them isn't the hard part. It's finding legitimate ones. Anytime, if you've found this video and you've been looking for Spotify promotion, you've probably seen that it is easy to bot a lot of this information or activity that's going into Spotify. It's no different than if right now we wanted to all buy 25,000 fake followers on YouTube or for Instagram. It'd probably be like $100 and I'd get 25,000 followers tomorrow. I'd get no new engagement, no new nothing. It's just to look, the vanity of looking like I have an audience. Well, those same services apply on Spotify, and there are companies or people out there who will just, how many views do you want? Oh, you want 24,000? Great. Yeah, I'll get you those tomorrow. And a machine goes and listens to your song 24,000 times, and then eventually Spotify catches it and doesn't pay you for your royalties and kicks you off the platform. So it's really not worth doing, but a lot of companies out there are scamming artists, and it's very prevalent, and it's an unfortunate part of the music industry. But that doesn't mean all playlists are bad, just many of them are. And then this is just another way, you know, since music has been monetized, at least in the modern era, there's always people out there taking advantage of musicians who don't know any better. This is one of those things. If some company out there is giving you some offer that sounds too good to be true, it is. It's hard to market music. Marketing music is no different than marketing anything else. And if you try to say, okay, if I opened a shoe store next month, how realistic is it that if I spent $100 on an ad, I sell 10,000 pairs of shoes? Unlikely, right? So there's similar things where if it's like, oh yeah, for $100, we can get you 100 or 1 million streams and it's all legit. Oh yeah, like it's, if it only costs $100 to get 1 million streams legitimately, don't you think every musician would be doing it and everybody would be famous? It's no different than selling any other product. It takes time, it takes money, it takes good targeting. There's no shortcut. But starting with user-generated playlists is a great way to start like the initial discovery of who is listening from where. Because Spotify will only give you the information of those who listen past 30 seconds. So if somebody listens and it's not their thing, they skip it. Spotify isn't giving you that information. But eventually they'll start to say, hey, you know, guys in their 20s in Baltimore who listen to Pusha T are also listening to your music. That's what playlists are great for. They're kind of like a focus group. So you can kind of get a shit ton of information about who's listening from where, and then you can apply that information to things like a YouTube campaign or an ad on Instagram or TikTok. But it gives you a much clearer idea of who you're actually trying to hit with your target instead of fucking guessing. All right, so if you want to learn more about Spotify, leave some comments here. Subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about music marketing and the music business as a whole. But please let me know what other questions you have about Spotify and what, if anything I missed, leave a comment and I will answer your questions in a follow-up video. But thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Elliot Towsley. I'll see you again soon.